Thank you so much for joining us here at Indigo Moon. Excuse me. A woman's intuition, what does it tell her? A woman's intuition will tell her plenty of things, but it's up to her to listen to what it is actually telling her. So, a woman's intuition tells her that her husband is not being true to her. But instead of her listening to her woman's intuition, what she does is she begins to place blame on the stepdaughter. Her husband comes into the house very late. His fragrance is off, as well as his story. He says that the woman, that not to be worried about the mother of his children because she's gay. So the woman believes, oh my goodness, he doesn't realize the severity of what he's saying. Because if this is true, then her stepdaughter is in the next room with her daughter. And that's all she thinks of. Her job is to defend her family. And her daughter, her child, is her first form of defense. She wants to support her child. So she says, what do you mean? He thinks he's telling her this story to get himself off of the hook. But he's not looking at the bigger picture. First of all, the woman that he says is gay is actually bisexual. She loves him, so she will decide that she wants to be with him, but he's married. This is a woman of his past. But he continues to want his cake and eat it too. But he comes home with a totally different story. He doesn't tell the woman that he has been with his ex. Instead, he wants to change the story, change the narratives of the story. And now he places the child who now lives in this home in a very compromising position. So now the woman thinks that her stepdaughter might be doing something to her daughter. Now, again, he did not think of the whole plan when he threw the story out. He thought this might make her feel more comfortable and that he can continue to try to have his cake and eat it too. So now the woman does not want this daughter in her house. She wants her out. They've already moved the bed. They've changed. The bed was once a queen-size bed, and they switched the bed from a queen-size bed to a twin bed so that the older daughter cannot even sleep in this room. And you wonder, how was the house purchased in the first place? So now the daughter has a problem at school. They have to go to the school. The daughter goes to, the youngest daughter, her daughter goes to a private school. And they're called to the principal's office. And at the principal's office, they say that this child was caught with a younger girl. So now she says it had to be that older daughter who did this. Not realizing that the children were experimenting by apparently something that they saw their parents doing. So automatically the blame goes on the older sister because it had to be her, because my child would never do this. They are children and they are experimenting what they watched. So the older sister hears part of the story and goes and talks to the younger daughter. She tells her little sister, what were you doing? What happened in school? So the little girl says that they were touching each other. Now this is a sensitive story, sensitive matter altogether. So the big sister sits on the big daughter, on the little sister, and says, look, do you like that? You like it when a person gets on you? Then you don't do that in school. So when the mother goes to confront the daughter, she can't because she's so sensitive about the situation. Nobody ever sits down and talks to the daughter about it. So she thinks that she did something and she's afraid now. What it was is when they did this, there was another teacher who was in that building who was actually upset because his job was to be watching these children, but the teacher was going to do something inappropriate to the daughter. You see, when you're looking at the dynamics of a story, God will save your children from one situation, but the children were experimenting at this point in time, those little girls. So because of the embarrassment, the mother wants to take the daughter out of the school, but she doesn't know how to do it. She has her own job teaching in New York City. So the little girl and the big sister have a talk, and the big sister says, listen, you do not let anybody touch you. Not realizing that it was on both children's parts. These two children were experimenting. They were looking at each other, and apparently this is the beginning of the stage of the younger sister being a lesbian. But she's not actually a lesbian. We're going to say that she's bisexual. But at the time, this is where it all began. Nobody wants to look at the situation, and nobody knows how to handle it. Counseling might have been appropriate at this point in time so that the children at least see that they were experimenting and not look at it as something so negative. Now, when you have children go into a private school and you don't go and check the school out, some things will happen, and the teachers will believe that they have full orchestration of whatever it is that they do. And the principal might not even look at the school and be able to handle it with all the big responsibilities that it takes to run a school. But this school was run like this for a period of time. Now, another child ends up with that one of those teachers speaking and touching the child inappropriately at this very same private school later on. When you look at the dynamics of how things begin, you have to look at it from more than just one perspective. So the older daughter is asked to go and live with her older brother's girlfriend's family, and the father is supposed to pay for this girl to stay. But while she stays in this house, she is embarrassed because she has to live with a family who is not her own. The older sister wears her clothing and mistreats her by speaking to her in an inappropriate way. And now the family is affected by the father figure throwing this child into a whole different family environment. And now she has to watch from a window to see the family go out on different outings, and she feels rejected. Now, when you look at the woman's intuition, this woman knew that her husband was stepping out on her. And instead of her going woman to the mother of the children, or instead of her deciding to leave him and make him accountable for his actions, the children now suffer behind it. The counseling is not given to the youngest daughter, nor the older daughter, and the family is left in chaos. When you look at a family dynamic and you do not get the necessary counseling in place where these family members need to be spoken to, they need to be heard, what ends up happening in the end? That is the question at hand. When you say that you're on a self-love journey, the self-love journey is to heal some of the wounds that happened in your childhood so that you can live a more effective lifestyle growing up. The younger sister might be upset and offended that the older sister chose to confront her. She might feel uncomfortable because her mother did not know how to talk to her or confront her in the matter and just took the embarrassment of the situation. And the father figure deciding that he wants to pay his way out of it by putting the older daughter into a home that does not belong to her. He refuses to take her back to the Bronx to be with the mother figure because he now does not want to pay any money. But he wants to be able to have his cake and eat it too. The mother is still living in his first house, which is not actually his first house. The money that was paid for that house was from an inheritance from the older daughter. You see, when you look at the dynamics of a family and how a family is affected and what the outcomes are, you have to look at how it all began. Was this daughter actually a child in this family, or was she adopted? Was the youngest daughter able to see things that were inappropriate for her age to make her act out and make her curious about the female anatomy? When we look at the dynamics of a family and to see how things can spiral out of place and have a family see things, act out, and for it not to be dealt with in a counseling can be kind of catastrophic. We have to look at our families and look at the dynamics of how things actually come out in the end. Now, the older daughter was basically there to help out and to take care of a family. And in some cases, even the adults, because the adults being so free to do whatever it is that they chose to do, and the children be affected by not being able to get the adequate counseling, can cause quite a big form of confusion. I leave that with you because when we look at the dynamics of any family, every family must be able to function properly. You cannot throw another child to the wolves and think that that older child is not going to feel a certain way. And the children, the younger siblings, not knowing why their older sister or older sibling has to be removed from a home, and they be made to stay and not understand what happened. We have to look at the dynamics of the family. Every family going through any form of instability is going to have an effect on the individuals at hand. Thank you for joining us. Indigo Moon.